My name is James, I'm 38, and I've always valued honesty, loyalty, and respect in my marriage. I married Rachel 10 years ago, and we had built a life filled with vacations, shared dreams, and our little cabin in the woods, a place we often called our sanctuary. That sanctuary, however, was about to reveal the deepest betrayal I had ever experienced. It all started on a chilly Friday evening. Rachel had insisted on taking a weekend trip to the cabin, claiming it was just the two of us reconnecting. I had sensed her secretive behavior lately, late phone calls, hidden messages, and subtle evasions, but I didn't let it show. This weekend, I decided, would be the moment the truth came out. As we drove, Rachel seemed unusually quiet, stealing glances at her phone. I noticed a faint smile she tried to suppress, a telltale sign of excitement. When we arrived at the cabin, she eagerly unpacked, while I casually explored the surroundings, pretending to enjoy the crisp forest air. Later that evening, she said she had a surprise for me and vanished into the bedroom. A few minutes later, a man I had never seen before walked into the living room, smiling confidently, extending his hand. "Hi James, I'm Mark. Rachel told me we'd have a fun weekend together." My heart sank for a brief moment, not out of fear, but clarity. The man had no idea the weekend would be anything but what he expected. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, sitting calmly in the living room, pretending to admire the fire as they waited for my reaction. Rachel's smirk faltered slightly when she noticed my composure. "James, I wanted to surprise you," she said nervously. "We thought it would be exciting." I nodded slowly, taking a sip from my glass. "Exciting?" I echoed, letting the word linger. "Yes, it is exciting. Exciting that you both underestimated me." My voice was steady, almost serene, though inside, a storm of calculated thoughts was forming. Mark, oblivious to the tension, tried to make small talk, but I barely responded. Rachel's attempt at charm and control faltered as she realized that I wasn't reacting with fear, anger, or panic. I had already anticipated this scenario, and every move they made would be carefully observed. By the time the night fell, the cabin was quiet except for the crackle of the fireplace. I had set my plan into motion without saying a word. This weekend wouldn't be about secrecy or indulgence. It would be about exposing the truth, reclaiming control, and ensuring Rachel and her lover understood the consequences of betrayal. That night, as Rachel and Mark settled into the living room, I calmly offered them drinks. I made small talk, asking about their work and hobbies, but my words carried a subtle edge, forcing them to reveal more than they intended. Every smile, every gesture, every nervous glance became part of the story I was silently writing in my mind. I waited until Rachel excused herself to the bedroom, leaving Mark alone with me. I leaned back in my chair, taking a deliberate sip of whiskey, and said, "You must be enjoying this weekend, huh? A cabin getaway with someone else's wife." Mark laughed nervously, trying to defuse the tension. Yeah, it's fun," he stammered. But I could see the unease growing in his eyes. The man had walked into my world thinking he was in control, but he had no idea how carefully I had planned this. Later, Rachel returned, a hint of frustration in her eyes, sensing something was off. I gestured toward the fire, keeping my voice calm but firm. "Rachel, you know this isn't a joke. You brought him here without considering the consequences. Every choice has its price." Her smirk was gone. I could see panic creeping in, realizing that her little scheme had backfired spectacularly. She tried to regain control, but it was too late. Every move I had anticipated, the surprise, the charm, the manipulation, had been countered silently and precisely. By midnight, the tension was palpable. I excused myself to the bedroom, letting Rachel and Mark linger in the living room, believing they had the upper hand. From my room, I observed quietly, ensuring every word and action would be used to expose the truth later. My plan was not impulsive, it was strategic. Every detail, from their arrival to their reactions, had been orchestrated to reveal betrayal for exactly what it was. And then I made my move. I sent a text to my closest friend, who was in town, asking him to join the cabin discreetly. Within an hour, he arrived and positioned himself out of sight, ready to help me confront the betrayal with evidence and witnesses if necessary. Rachel had no idea that the quiet husband she thought she could deceive had not only anticipated her every move, but had also prepared a flawless plan for exposure and justice. By the time the clock struck 1, the cabin was no longer a playground for deception. It had become the stage for truth, strategy, and the beginning of consequences that neither Rachel nor Mark could escape. By early morning, the moment of truth had arrived. Rachel and Mark were still unaware of what was about to happen. I gathered my thoughts, stepping into the living room with calm authority. Rachel's smug expression faltered as she sensed the shift. Mark, confused, looked between us, unsure of what was coming. "Rachel," I said, my voice steady. "This cabin was meant to be our sanctuary. But you turned it into a stage for lies and betrayal. You brought him here thinking you could deceive me, but every move you made has been observed, every word recorded, and every action noted." I motioned toward my friend, who stepped out from the shadows, holding a folder of undeniable evidence. Text messages, photos, and videos that left no room for denial. Rachel's eyes widened in disbelief, while Mark's confidence crumbled instantly. "You see," I continued, "trust is not given lightly. It is earned and protected. You chose to break it, and now you must face the consequences." My tone was calm, almost detached, yet every word carried the weight of betrayal exposed. Rachel tried to protest, to deflect, but the evidence was irrefutable. Mark stammered, "I didn't know." I cut him off. "You didn't know?" "No, you didn't know the husband was watching, planning, and waiting. But ignorance doesn't erase guilt. You both made choices that crossed lines, and those choices have consequences." Rachel fell silent, tears streaming down her face. For the first time, she realized that the life she had attempted to manipulate, the trust she had shattered, and the boundaries she had ignored could not be restored with apologies alone. I looked at both of them, my voice firm. "You will leave this cabin and never return. There will be no reconciliation, no bargaining, and no more lies. Your actions have defined the limits of your presence in my life." As they packed and left, I felt a wave of clarity and control wash over me. The betrayal had been confronted with strategy, patience, and precision. My sanctuary, once violated, had been reclaimed. The lesson was clear. Deceit cannot survive against preparation, observation, and unwavering self-respect. Later, I walked through the cabin, observing the stillness. It was no longer a place of fear or anger, but a symbol of regained control. I had faced betrayal head-on, with calm decisiveness, and ensured that justice was served, not through rage, but through meticulous planning and clarity of mind. Rachel and Mark had walked in thinking they were in control. They left understanding painfully that they never were. And I, James, had emerged not only unbroken but stronger, wiser, and fully aware of the value of trust, integrity, and the consequences of crossing those lines.